Welcome to a special video. As you see from the title already, I'm testing out the Xiaomi 15 Ultra against the Vivo X100 Ultra, and I'm filming right now with the 15 Ultra. Internal mics, by the way, just to give you an impression how the video performance looks like. But this will be not like a full camera comparison, because if you want to take a look at this, I refer you to my X200 Pro camera comparison, full camera comparison, because mostly it's the same. You just take a look at daylight photos against those two, and I will switch now to this one here so that you can get a glimpse of how the video performance looks like on both. I think both are doing fine. Maybe the stabilization is a bit weaker on the Vivo at 4K 30 frames per second. What do you think about this one? How do they handle the light in the background, underexposure of my face, such things? And stabilization should be also pretty fine on the main camera sensor. But now let's compare the photos.
We start off with the macro shots. The Xiaomi 15 Ultra produces the more accurate colors with a bit more yellowish kind of flower color, where we have it a bit more orangey on the Vivo X100 Ultra. I was using size natural, and I was using a Leica Vivid with the Leica natural filter on top, and I still prefer the colors on the Xiaomi. When we zoom in, the 70mm floating lens is giving us a little more depth, where we have a little bit shallow depth of field on the Vivo, so less is in focus there. I prefer for macro photography the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, especially when you go in a bit closer. You can see how much more orangey the color gets on the Vivo. It has the more pleasant kind of bokeh, that's for sure, but at this point I think for the macro shots the Xiaomi is doing a slightly better job than the Vivo is doing. Both are fantastic for macro photography, and the detail level that you can get out of them is splendid, but the shallower depth of field on the Vivo X100 Ultra, thanks to the larger sensor, is not always working to its advantage, and here I think the Xiaomi 15 Ultra has a slight advantage. When we check out the main camera sensors, still Leica Vivid with Leica natural filter on top, we can see that we have a bit more contrasty look on the Xiaomi in comparison to the Vivo, which handles the shadows and the light parts of the picture a little bit more gradually. When we go in and take a look at the detail levels, both are doing a fine job, and I don't notice much of a difference in terms of the detail levels. They're very, very comparable. No matter where you go, no matter what you click, it is very, very similar. When we take a look at the Leica Authentic with Leica Natural Filter, it's too desaturated, and I don't prefer this. So if you want to get a bit of software image, for sure on the Xiaomi then, but I don't prefer this. Let's go to portrait shots. We start off with 2x portraits. This time I was using on the 15 Ultra the Master Portrait Mode instead of the Leica Portrait Mode, as people suggested me that this is the better one, and I can agree. Yes, it is the better one, and we get very comparable shots against the Vivo. Here I would even prefer the Xiaomi, because the color gradient here looks a bit nicer than this here, a bit too orangey look and too lifted up shadow there on the Vivo. But this is a matter of taste. Both are doing a fine job. The detail level is very similar. In this very hard condition, where we have a backlight that is white, we have a bit of more haloing on the Vivo's X100 Ultra's 85mm larger sensor, where the 70mm handles a little bit more better. We have face priority or average face metering turned on the Xiaomi. This gives us a little bit of a brighter picture there, and both are very sharp and detailed, and here I cannot really tell them apart and would give one the win over the other. We have a bit of more sharpness here, where here it's getting a bit softer already, but this might be due to the f2 blurriness that is set on the Vivo X100 Ultra, where here on the Xiaomi I think it was set to f4. And in the next pictures I will correct this. The blurriness is set to the same amount here now. 100mm versus 100mm. Both are using their optical zooms, but it's a bit cropped in on the Vivo. And we have face metering turned on the Xiaomi. This is why the picture is so bright, because it tries to brighten up the picture. And here it's a definite win for the Vivo, as you can see here, because it's just looking too artificial on the Xiaomi. But I took another round of shots and corrected a little bit the view, angle of view. Not sure if it's 100% perfect, but I changed it to average metering. On the Vivo I didn't find the option to change between face and average metering. Maybe you can tell me where to find it if this option is still available there to be chosen. On the Xiaomi, it is a possibility in the settings, and this looks much nicer now. And here I would even prefer the Xiaomi because the face is just too yellow on the Vivo, in my opinion. The Xiaomi appears to be a little bit sharper there. You know, it's doing a little bit more over sharpening, but the face color is much more realistic because I'm a bit more pale looking and not that yellow looking as on the Vivo. Both are doing a fine job, but here I would prefer the Xiaomi. And the next shot, which is 135mm, both can do this as well, thanks to the newest update on the Vivo. Here again, with the default face metering, I prefer the Vivo for sure, because the Xiaomi is just too overblown and too artificial looking, where the Vivo is more natural. When we go in, however, and punch the average metering in, this is also 135mm, just a slightly different angle. Taken with the same tripod, same positions, just I had to change the angle a little bit to make it a bit more comparable. But here I still see a bit over sharpening on the Xiaomi. It's a bit more natural looking on the Vivo, but I still would prefer the Xiaomi for this portrait because of the face color, because I don't like this yellowish face color that I have here on the Vivo. So I'm very surprised that in terms of portrait, this is a clear win for the Xiaomi in this little bit harsher condition here. Let's go and check out the selfies. Here I think it's also a win for the Xiaomi. Why is that the case? Look at the cutout of the portrait shot here. It has some issues on the Vivo, where it is not perfect on the Xiaomi, but it is way better than on the Vivo. And in terms of like detail levels and so on, again a bit more warmer, yellowish kind of face, where here we have a little bit more orangey, reddish kind of face. We have 32 megapixels there on the Xiaomi, where we have in a wider field of view of 21mm, where we have a little bit more crop down, 24mm on the Vivo. And yeah, bokeh balls both are doing and handle a nice job there, and it's just a little bit like bokeh-licious on the Xiaomi. So it's a slight win for the Xiaomi thanks to a better color, and I think also colors. When we look at the ultra wide angles, they've been taken also Leica Vivid and on top Leica Natural applied on the ultra wide angle, and I was shocked to see that the ultra wide angle at daylight, both 14mm f2.2, is much crispier, much nicer on the Xiaomi, much more detailed on the Xiaomi than on the Vivo. The Vivo has an edge when it comes to like the colors, I would say, because it's like the contrast levels are too high and it's a bit too desaturated here, in my opinion, with this natural look. That I would prefer the Zeiss Natural definitely more. But the sharpness level difference made me think I have to check out the ultra wide angles in low light conditions, because here it's a clear win for the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, and that would mean I have to give the 15 Ultra more points for the ultra wide angle than the Vivo. But how about nighttime? We compared the 15 Ultra with the X200 Pro, where the X200 Pro and the 15 Ultra behaved almost exactly the same at nighttime, with the X200 Pro being a bit better. Low light condition, you can see the more added contrast is not to an advantage of the 15 Ultra, because it's like, yeah, getting a bit dull looking, where it's much nicer looking on the 100 Ultra. From Vivo. In terms of detail levels, both are doing a fine job, but the HDR difference here is making a difference in terms of for the Vivo. But the detail levels still, look at the holes that are visible here and here almost invisible, is leaning towards the Xiaomi a bit. Noise levels and so on, I think there's slightly bit more noise on the Vivo, but I could be mistaken. But the HDR is like a big difference, where the Vivo is striking back, even though the noise levels and maybe like here you can see a little bit of the processing, which you don't see so much on the Xiaomi, is kicking in. So this is like equaling themselves out in this condition. And when we go to ultra night conditions, where the night mode has to kick in, I don't like the bluish kind of hue that we have here on the Vivo so much, so I prefer the warmer kind of hue here. But when we look at the detail levels here, you can see that here, yes, the Vivo is like giving us more details, a bit more contrasty look, but also the sharpness level is much nicer. It's much more edited, much more processed looking, but the detail levels is much nicer. It's basically the same advantage in terms of details as we saw in the daylight for the Xiaomi, now at the ultra night time with the night mode on the Vivo. So here they are equaling themselves out, so the points stay the same on both for the ultra wide angle, because at nighttime the Vivo ultra wide angle can beat the 15 Ultra with better HDR and better sharpening algorithms for the night mode. Then when we check out the zoom levels, quite interestingly, I would say at 17 against 85 millimeters. Here in this example, I don't see much of a difference between those two. The advantage of the larger sensor size is not so apparent here at this point. We have like the spikes there. Yeah, we have a bit more zoomed in. We have the spikes there that hinder the birds to shit and sit on this building. But we also see this here very nicely separated on the Xiaomi, and also the above line there as well. It's a bit brighter here. It's a bit darker there. But also the HDR, yes, it's a tiny bit better there on the Vivo in comparison to the Xiaomi. That is slightly overblown here, but still, yeah, very, very interesting. The only thing that you can see really the difference is this fence here, where we can see the lines are not really there, where here you can see the individual lines. So yes, the bigger pixels of the larger sensor on the Vivo is winning here slightly. When we zoom in even further, this is 10 times, we see that even with the Leica natural look on top of Leica Vivid, the vividness and more contrasty look of the Xiaomi is still apparent in comparison to the Vivo. And when it comes to sharpness and detail levels, yes, the focus was on the Xiaomi was here on this car. This is why it's slightly blurry here on the Vivo, because the Vivo was focusing on the background. This is why it's slightly blurry here. They handle both the HDR fine, but it's a slightly bit overblown again on the Xiaomi, and it's a bit warmer and less overblown on the Vivo. So I like that. Pretty much identical there, with maybe a better HDR advantage of the Vivo. When we zoom in here, both have their AI features turned on, and I'm using the Leica Vivid with the Leica Natural filter on top on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. This is now also at 10 times. Let's take a look at the text there and read it. Both doing a little bit of the editing there to make it possible to read this. There's a little bit more edited and more unnatural looking on the Xiaomi. Look at also at the left here. And it's a bit brightened up there as well, but also the sharpening algorithms that you can see here with the white outlines around the text is also clearly visible. When I zoom in even further, this is now, this is the difference between let's go back here, between the Leica Vivid and Leica Authentic. If I use Leica Authentic, you can see it's getting much more towards what we have here with the Vivo. And let's go in further. This is now at 20 times zoom, again with Leica Vivid, more sharpening applied, and you can see both apply a lot of sharpening. There's, I think, a little bit more sharpening applied and a little bit more processing happening there on the Vivo. The Xiaomi still looks a little bit, less processed, a little bit more realistic. The bricks especially, for example, it's sharpened up a little bit more on the Vivo there when it comes to the text, and it's a bit softer there on the Xiaomi for sure as well. And when we go to the next one, which is 30 times zoom on both, it becomes evident that the sharpening algorithm is the processing is much more advanced on the Vivo. You can see clearly it is readable still here, where here you cannot read it at all. It's also doing its AI processing, but it's not as much applied to as it is on the Vivo. And you can see it here also with the text, which has much more sharpening applied on the Vivo. So it's a bit more natural looking on the Xiaomi, but it's not a huge difference. When we take a look at the small text here, also more readable on the Vivo, but I think it looks a bit more natural on the Xiaomi. The more we zoom in, this is now 60 times, the more it becomes evident that both are pretty good in terms of long range zoom. But here you can see, like from here to here, a huge difference. At 60 times the Xiaomi is kicking in its AI 2.0, one could say. Much more sharpening, much more editing going on. You can see the white outlines there, and now it is even a little bit better than the processing here that we see on the Vivo when it comes to the more zoomed in kind of shot. When it comes to this text here, also much more readable now on the Xiaomi than on the Vivo. And in general, I think the AI on the Xiaomi at 60 times is doing a little bit of better job than the one on the Vivo. And then we go in and turn off the AI for both, basically. On the Xiaomi, you just do it by going to Leica Authentic, which has a much softer look and doesn't add so much AI features there. On the Vivo, you can do it just by going into settings and turn off the AI feature completely. Much more natural colors on the Vivo, a bit more contrast. Like I used Leica Authentic and it's desaturating a little bit more, even if I chose the vivid colors as filter on top. But don't think about the filters, we're talking about the detail levels here. 300 millimeter roughly, which is 13.2 times zoom on both. And you can see that, yeah, in terms of detail levels, is there a difference? I think there's a color difference, there's a contrast difference, but in terms of detail, they're very, very similar there. Let's zoom in even further, 700. So this is, what is it? 20 times zoom, I think. 30 times zoom, actually. We have a bit more HDR-ish kind of look again. We have nice detail levels on both, I would say. But here I think the Xiaomi is losing against the Vivo. Vivo has, even though I turned off the AI processing, has a bit more processing going on than the Xiaomi has. For sure, the cracks in the walls and the wall itself has more detail on the Vivo than on the Xiaomi. And when we go in here, both are a bit artistic looking, a bit more shadow detail, a bit more contrast look, but detail levels, I think, yeah, the Xiaomi is not inventing more details, I hope. It's a bit more realistic looking, actually, because here it looks like the Vivo is doing something there, if even AI is turned off. And the more you zoom in, it becomes more evident. This is 60 times zoom now. And yeah, let's take a look at the detail level here, compared with here. It's noisy, but it has a little bit more details on the Xiaomi here, which is quite interesting there. So yeah, very, very interesting to see that the Xiaomi is, I think, in the long range zoom beating the Vivo there. So at 60 times, it has to, actually, it has a longer focal length, so it has to do it actually. But it's interesting that to see that the Vivo is still having this artificial kind of look, even though it turned off the AI stuff. So this is round, as you see here, and this is like almost like a square. So yeah, there is a slight advantage when it comes to the longer zoom ranges on the Xiaomi for sure, as you can see here. And that's it in terms of comparison.
And before someone is saying, hey, he's not doing nighttime tests, here is the Xiaomi 15 Ultra against the Vivo X100 Ultra nighttime test for videos and also, of course, for photos, walking towards the light. Nighttime video, 4K 24 frames per second here on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra. What do you think? How's the exposure here? How does it change when I turn around towards the light and dark background? So what do you think? Also internal audio. So what do you think about this? 4K 30 frames per second now on the Vivo X100 Ultra. This one here has auto FPS set up, so it should also go down to 24 frames per second. Walking towards the light, car passing by, I cannot influence this. How good are the mics still picking up my voice here? And now I'm going with the light in the background there, hopefully not caught or crashing into a car. And this is now here. I have the suspicion this has too low shutter speed and it gives too much motion blur here, but you be the judge. Which one did you find better?
The interesting part begins with the nighttime. Like I said already, at daylight, the nighttime shots on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra are equal to the Vivo X100 Ultra, sometimes even worse. In this case, they're very equal. There's just a slight bit better HDR on the Vivo's side there, and it looks a little bit more noisy there on the Vivo. It's a bit cleaner here on the Xiaomi, but both are not the best. Definitely one of the weakest sensors on both there. You can see a little bit more noise there, which the Xiaomi doesn't have. So yeah, maybe there's a slight edge on the ultra-wide angle towards the Xiaomi in total. But yeah, the Vivo is bringing it back thanks to better highlight control. And as you see at nighttime, there's not much of a difference between them. But at daylight, yes, the Xiaomi is better. At nighttime, not anymore. So we have equaling themselves out there and getting the same points. Same for the main camera sensor. There's not much of a difference. There's a slightly bit overblown highlight, better highlight control on the Vivo than on the Xiaomi. But the detail level is basically identical. There's not much of a difference between those two again. The telezoom is much more interesting because the two periscope or two telezooms that the Xiaomi really has, one is failing completely at night. This is a 70mm because you can see cannot compete against the 3.7x, so 85mm from the Vivo because much larger sensor, much more details. It gets a little bit better when you compare 10 times with 10 times. The only thing that you will notice is that Xiaomi struggles a little. The detail level is almost on par. The Xiaomi struggles a little bit with the motion blur here because I think the algorithm for the night shots is a little bit weak. You can see it's also nice and clean. I would even say the sky is better on the Xiaomi because it's dark as it should be. but it's a bit of motion blur going on here. And the more you zoom in, the more it becomes apparent. If you press the zoom button again there, then 300mm on the Vivo and 400 on the Xiaomi, and the Xiaomi looks like this, very noisy and grainy there, where the Vivo looks very, very clean here. It is clinical clean. It means like it's like removing all the noise and making it look like clean. So what it was like the downside of it at daylight, where it's having this heavy processing, is now an upside, where you can see the less heavy processing on the Xiaomi being at nighttime maybe not the best for the details and so on, because it's like it's saturating everything. So it's equaling themselves out as well here in this case, where at nighttime the Xiaomi, let's say at daylight, both are doing a fine job, a bit more processed look on the Vivo. At nighttime, this processed look helps the Vivo to look definitely way better than the Xiaomi looks here. And where I would say the Vivo is like winning this, and solely based on the nighttime performance. If Xiaomi would add a little bit more processing, maybe if they detect nighttime and do a little bit more cleanup, then I would give them also more points. But here I have to just say the telezoom performance, especially at nighttime, is like Vivo is killing it. And Vivo is killing also the Xiaomi 15 Ultra's chance of becoming #1 with this little thing here. Let's check out the selfies. Very equal, not much of a difference. Nice background blur there. We have a little bit, because the illumination of the face is like, again, creating a little bit of a hazy effect here on the Xiaomi. We had this before as well, but the bokeh is very bokelicious on both, and I don't see much of a difference between this. Besides like the processing, you can see colors, way nicer colors on Xiaomi here. The face color here look a little bit like a ghost. We had this, I think, very similar with the X200 Pro, if I'm not completely mistaken, or was it the Oppo? Much more sharpened up eyebrows there, which look a little bit unrealistic. It's also doing this sharpening of eyebrows, but much more realistic on the Xiaomi. So yes, it is like equaling themselves out here. You have to choose your poison between those two, but it's not one completely better than the other one in terms of detail levels and night photos. It's just a matter of style, and I don't like this palish, completely palish look on the Vivo. The Xiaomi is fitting my style better. Ranking and conclusion, TLDR, the Vivo X100 Ultra is still #1 with 4.628 points, where the Xiaomi 15 Ultra is still #2 with 4.605 points. Where are the differences? It's not the main camera photo quality, because it's equal at day and at night. The ultra-wide angle camera, maybe I will decide at one point to give maybe Xiaomi the edge here, but the nighttime processing needs to be a bit better there, because this is what it's killing the ultra-wide angle. Otherwise, the ultra-wide angle at daylight is definitely outperforming the X100 Ultra, but at nighttime, the Xiaomi is losing against the Vivo when it comes to the performance a little bit, especially with HDR content. In my example here, that was very, very equal. This is why I give them also the equal points there. This is the reason, solely the reason. Zoom and portrait photo quality, I was very surprised by the Xiaomi's performance in portrait, because I think it is even surpassing the X100 Ultra in many aspects. But when it comes to the zoom range, we also saw a difference that they both have. Like we have definitely on the Vivo, no matter if you have AI enabled or disabled, more processing going on, where the Xiaomi keeps it a little bit more realistic, let's say, with less AI processing. It's also kicking it in. Interestingly enough, at 60x, there's a second kind of AI kicking in, which is improving the shots even further. Very, very interesting between them both. But I think that the Xiaomi has a little bit of an edge there, because it's not smoothing everything out so much. It's keeping in a little bit of the noise, and this helps also to identify and to keep a little bit more of details in, where the Vivo is smoothing everything out and sometimes like removing also finer details that the Xiaomi still can show. So there it is winning. But at nighttime, the Xiaomi is like, I will not say complete failure, but the very large zoom lens that it has should just perform a little bit better. They struggle with the stabilization. There's motion blur introduced. You can see that 10 times where they would be equal if the motion blur would not be there on the Xiaomi 15 Ultra, the stabilization a little bit better. When you zoom in even further, then the Vivo's algorithm that is kicking in and smoothing everything out, that it's like the downside in daylight is at nighttime a real benefit because you get cleaner shots. And the Xiaomi should maybe detect this and say, okay, it's nighttime, maybe I kick in this AI that I have also at 60 times, maybe already before, like at 30 times or 20 times, to make the shot a little bit cleaner. But they're not doing it intelligently enough, I would say. So this is why still, in terms of zoom and portrait photo quality, the Vivo X100 Ultra is one step ahead of the Xiaomi. But it is just, like I said, the Xiaomi can easily fix it with a little bit of software here and there, and then can outperform the, maybe not outperform, but equal out to the X100 Ultra if they introduce a better night photos and better algorithms to do this. Video recording quality is both on par, I would say. The Vivo did huge updates there, and this is like, a little bit of like a taste of what will come with the X200 Ultra. That will definitely be probably a video beast as well, with a dedicated chip and so on. They learned, I think, a lot there, and they're slowly also what is possible bringing to the older devices, which is something that I really, really like. Xiaomi is also doing a splendid job. If you compare Xiaomi from 5 years ago, so something like this, to now, they're doing a splendid job, and they improved a lot in terms of videography. And I would really like to record videos with the Xiaomi, especially when you record log, for example. You can just on the device itself color grade it directly if you want it, and get a better footage than the normal video mode for sure, which is like less over sharpened, less processed looking, more camera like looking. Autofocus performance is the same. Front camera performance is also the same. Yes, some would argue that the Vivo has a little bit more details, but the colors are sometimes a bit off, and especially at nighttime, I think it's doing too much processing on the face, and it's like when you go to 100% view, it's like too much, and the Xiaomi keeps it a bit more real there for sure. But in general, they are equaling themselves out. Camera UI, both very, very good camera UIs, but I like what I like from the Xiaomi is, and this is why it gets 4.6 point, is the possibility to do everything basically with one hand. You can change all the settings with one hand. You don't need your second hand. On the Vivo, you need it. Which is a bit of a downside, but Vivo has many, many options and many functionalities that the Xiaomi doesn't have. And for this kind of functionalities, they implemented quite nice. With a few clicks, you have also the possibility to change certain settings. Extra features is, however, a win for the Vivo for sure. We have much more features there regarding log recording, regarding the possibility to disable the noise reduction in video, which is quite nice in Pro mode at least. We have 25 and 50 frames per second. The Xiaomi is even lacking 24 frames per second. You can only activate it when you force night mode in video mode, which is weird and bizarre, because like in Pro mode, I would expect it to have the 24 frames per second. And there's weird things going on in the Xiaomi. It can record 120 frames per second in 4K, but when you go to slow-mo, it only allows you to record 1080p and then 120 or 240 frames per second. So I think 900 something with 720p. But why there's no 4K option anymore? So something that needs to be updated as well, and where the Vivo just simply has an edge over the Xiaomi in regards to this. So where does it leave us with the ranking? Basically nothing has changed. We have the Vivo X100 Ultra still on number 1 on top, 4.628 points. Xiaomi 15 Ultra still on number 2, surpassing the Oppo Find X7 Ultra with what actually? With the zoom performance and portrait performance, we have to check still out, or just checked it out. You see probably another video there where I checked it out, where the it's interesting. The zoom performance here, I think the Xiaomi is better than the Oppo, especially as the Oppo at nighttime fails completely with not having it's basically the Xiaomi doesn't have the 3x at nighttime. That is like a little bit lackluster, and the Oppo is completely disabling the 6x lens when it's getting too dark, so it's not even using it, which is I think even worse, because then you have just a crop in from the 3x, and this is just the reason here. The Oppo is definitely better than the Xiaomi in terms of video performance there, better colors, slightly better stabilization and smoother zoom in and out effects there. Autofocus performance is almost the same. Camera UI is one of the issues that I have with the Oppo Find X7 Ultra, because it's like not one-hand friendly. It's sometimes confusing to find certain settings there, and it's a little bit outdated there, this camera UI. I think they should update it. I like the master mode for sure, that it's there and such things, but it needs to be a bit updated. And the same goes for extra features. I like to have a pro video feature that is not the movie mode that has only like a certain amount of aspect ratio and a certain amount of video resolution that you cannot change. And the same goes, like, I want the same flexibility as with the Vivo, like disable noise reduction, maybe disable even stabilization if I need to, having 25 50 frames per second, 24 frames per second easy selector, focus peaking, zebras, and maybe the possibility to save settings for videos, especially for certain scenarios. That would be very, very nice indeed as well. So yeah, this is one thing that I see here. The Vivo X200 Pro is a solid 4th place here. As you see, the Vivo is lacking in terms of the ultra wide angle. Yes, it's slightly worse. It was already slightly worse than the X100 Ultra, and it's still slightly worse than the rest of the bunch there above it. Zoom performance is the same as with the Vivo X100 Ultra. It's very good there. Slightly different processing, even more processing, I think, on the X200 Pro than on the X100 Ultra. But yeah, it's nearly perfect, the zoom performance that we have there. Video recording quality is a little bit lackluster, especially with the front-facing camera that is like very shaky. Don't know what Vivo was thinking about this, because it's like not so great. But also like the main camera video performance is sometimes grainy. You see a little bit of noise already creeping in even at daylight, which is like also weird. Maybe it's over sharpening. I don't know what's going on there. And yeah, also when you zoom in during video with the main camera sensor, it's also sometimes not the same quality as the other ones, the 1-inch time sensor for sure. Autofocus performance is the same, front camera and camera UI. You see it here already. It has some nice extra features that the other ones don't have, besides like the other Vivo phone, of course, which gives it help there. And the number 5th rank is the Huawei Pura 70 Ultra. You can see the Xiaomi 14 Ultra here, number 6, so it's also not so far away. So this is my ranking. What do you think about it? Write it down in the comment section. That's everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time. Bye.